Okay, welcome back, guys, to the If I'm Being Honest podcast. I am your host, Ina. If this is not your first time listening, thank you for coming back. And if it is, it's a nice time over here. Thank you for tuning in. On the panel today, Zahara. Please say hi.
Hi guys.
We know her, we love her. Just yes, okay? I'ma just say today's episode is gonna be vulnerable. It's gonna be vulnerable. I feel like it's something that we haven't talked about on the pod in this depth, I feel like. And I would never rather do this episode with anybody but you, Z. So if anything, I'll let you get into it. So what's the title?
So today's title is If I'm Being Honest, Verbal is More Common Than We Think. To be honest, I feel like verbal abuse is one of those things that happen to so many people, but hardly anyone talks about it. And the crazy part is, it's not always obvious. Sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's from people we care about, and sometimes it's normalized so much that we barely recognize it.
No, definitely. So this episode, we're gonna bring some awareness. Let's jump into the definition. Okay, so from domestic shelters, where they actually are prioritizing helping people who are in domestic violence relationships or anything like that, or experience like, any type of abuse in any type of relationship, right? Interpersonal violence or anything like that. They said as their definition, and quote, verbal abuse is the pattern of speaking with the intent to demean, humiliate, blame, or threaten the victim. So I'll say it again. Verbal abuse is a pattern of speaking with the intent to demean, humiliate, blame, or threaten the victim. Though an abuser may raise their voice in a mean and threatening ways, verbal abuse does not always include shouting. It can simply be defined by the manner in which the abuser is speaking, typically in a demeaning, demoralizing way. So we're gonna unpack that, chat. So what does that look like? Outside of just the definition, what does that look like? Insults, right? Putting people down, name calling, right? Gaslighting, manipulative language. If you don't know what gaslighting is, it's a technique used in order to make a victim question their reality and their sense of self. Typically used through phrases like "that's not what happened," or "you're crazy," "you're over dramatic," things like that, right? Guilt tripping, which is different, basically making a individual feel guilty for their feelings, perspectives, or actions in order to manipulate them into getting the desired outcome. Constant criticism or jokes, quote unquote, that are actually meant to belittle accomplishments or yourself. Dismissive or demeaning comments, brushing people off. All those, that's what it can look like, right? On top of of course, shouting and yelling and cussing people out, it also can look in different ways. You don't have to be breakdown crying while they scream at you in order for it to be verbal abuse. It looks different, and that's why it's more common. I'm gonna let Zahara hop in.
Yeah, so those are all great points that you made, Dana. It doesn't always look like, for example, yelling or fighting words. It can be a friend jokingly saying you're so dramatic every time you speak up, or a partner making you feel guilty for expressing your feelings, or even a parent constantly saying you're not good enough. A lot of times can be very obvious, and I feel like that because we don't know so much about verbal abuse, that people are just really good at hiding it, and that quote unquote care is disguised as abuse. And I'm also going to just talk about how common it is, just its highlight, and just, how normalized it is. If I'm being honest, a lot of people don't even recognize verbal abuse because, again, it's just so normalized in relationships, friendships, and even at school or work. Comments that seem small at first can pile up and seriously just affect how we see ourselves. For example, in social media, right? A lot of it just isn't obvious or loud, but it plays a huge role in how verbal abuse shows up today. It looks like passive-aggressive captions, maybe shady comments that are disguised as jokes, or teasing that's just framed as just being funny. Sometimes it's posts that feel targeted, sarcastic emojis, or just messages that leave you questioning whether you're overreacting. What makes it worse is that it's public and permanent. Even small put downs can feel amplified when they're online, especially when other people see them, like them, or just pile on. I feel like social media makes it easier for people to be careless with their words because there's a screen between them and the impact. But just because it's online doesn't mean it hurts less. In a lot of ways, it hurts more. And to be honest, one of the hardest parts is how normalized it is, like I'm speaking about already. People just brush it off as humor, sarcasm, or quote unquote internet culture, which I feel like we should do an episode on that, but I'm getting off topic. But in reality, it can chip away at your confidence over time. Subtle verbal abuse online still counts, and it's okay to acknowledge when something posted or said digitally makes you uncomfortable or hurt.
Do you want to, I mean, this is completely up to you, but do you want to speak on your experience or like,
Sure. So growing up, right, I grew up in oh my God, in a mostly boy household. So my mom, for example, she has favorites and she tells us that she doesn't, but she does. I have three brothers and one sister, and I could, for example, get high grades, but it would never be enough. Whereas my brother could fail a semester and be told, oh my God, you still tried, that's all that matters. But my mom doesn't even look my way. And it really does suck because, like I try a lot, I do a lot, and I do it all just to get her attention, just to make her look in my direction for once. But I just never got it. So it's gotten to the point where I have this insecurity wanting validation, but I never ask for it because I feel like that makes me look weak. It makes me look like, oh, like I'm a pick me. It just makes me feel a lot of things. So it really does suck to experience what I experience, and I don't even wish it on my own enemy, to be honest.
wow, thank you for being open for that, because we definitely didn't plan to talk about that. But I just wanted to have you speak on it a little bit because I know so many people go through that where they feel like they're not being seen, they're not being heard, their accomplishments aren't valued. I feel like it's too common as teenagers and as the eldest daughter for you. I see it so much, especially taking care of siblings or just doing things that are pushed off on eldest daughters in a lot of households. And I know a lot of people who are the eldest daughters who feel the way that you do. And so I just wanted to provide that comfort and like for anyone who's listening to know that they're not alone. It's just way too common, unfortunately. But I very much am so proud of you, Z. My family is proud of you. We love you so much. And honestly, like I can't even truly express how much you do deserve that. Like so many people, they go unrecognized and it affects their own self-esteem. But I want to let y'all know, and anybody who's listening, just like the effort you put in, your accomplishments, find that value within yourself and just don't seek external. Don't make that the revolving point around your entire existence or your entire confidence or your esteem. Like find that within yourself, affirm yourself, Chad, definitely. So thank you for speaking on that a little bit. One thing I will always say, Chad, like I don't do that whole like how you were saying about the jokes or whatever. I joke. Anybody who know me know I joke. You know what I'm saying? There's certain things that I will joke on because it's a joke, but I will never ever disguise insults as jokes to and claim that that's my friend and that I love them or whatever, and that it's all like they're being too dramatic or whatever. Even if it's something that I said that like I thought was funny and everybody else thought was funny, if I can tell the joke didn't go over well with you, I'm gonna come to you and it's like, hey, you can always tell me if, oh, this is a boundary that we don't talk about, or this is one thing that we don't talk about for real. Like, you know what I mean? There's certain things that I'm always open to people letting me know, like, nah, that's too far, or I'm really sensitive about that. We don't talk about that. We don't joke on that. You know what I'm saying? And so definitely, I know so many people that have friends that's like, they'll just be like, a kiki, like your outfit's so ugly, a kiki. Like, no, that's not funny, yo. Or like, oh, like a kiki, your dad is gone, and kiki, like, yo, that is a violation. Not funny. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like certain things, it's just like certain things you really just have to see it in action and be able to recognize. So don't gaslight yourself into thinking, nah, she ain't mean it like that, or nah, he was just being over dramatic, or nah, that's just how he joked. Don't gaslight yourself in that. Speak up. Z, like I know you always tell me that you be like, don't be afraid to speak up, don't you? Oh my gosh. I guess we'll switch gears and hop into some effects. Like what does that look like, Z? How can verbal abuse manifest? Like how can that affect a person?
So that is a great question, and thank you for letting me start. Something that I can think of off the top of my head is low self-esteem / self-doubt. That is very common, especially in verbal abuse. Second, we have anxiety. Anxiety, oh my God, I go through this like every single day. Like I have so much anxiety, like not just with like, verbal abuse, but just in general in my day-to-day life. It sucks, but it's a part of who I am. And then depression. Depression, I feel like is not talked about. Depression is a really serious thing and it can become very dangerous if it's not managed or treated properly. Now, Dana, what do you think? What's your take on it?
No, definitely the anxiety. Like I remember I had anxiety. I was having an anxiety attack a couple days ago. And to me, like I don't get anxiety when like, oh, people like, oh, I have social anxiety or I get nervous about something, I have anxiety. That's not, I don't have day-to-day anxiety. I don't. I only get anxiety when like my brain is triggered, right? From something traumatic or something really sensitive. That's when I get anxiety, you know what I mean? That feeling in your chest gets heavy, you can't really breathe as well, right? And I was on the phone with you, Z. Do you remember this? I was on the phone with you and you gave me some technique. Can you give that to the people listening just in case they need it? You gave me some technique when we was on the phone. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Oh, yes, I definitely do. It's called the 5 4 3 2 1 method.
Yeah, tell them for sure. Because they helped me. I tell you guys it worked. Then you had me do a couple things after the method too. So I'm gonna let you go ahead.
Yeah, so basically, the 5 4 3 2 1 method is a grounded method, and it's just a simple technique that helps pull you out of your head and back into the present moment, especially when your thoughts start racing or your body feels overwhelmed. In Dana's case, basically, for context, we were on call and Dana saw a video and understandably it triggered her. And so what I did was I told Dana about the 5 4 3 2 method. And how this method works is one, you start by naming 5 things you can see around you. It could be anything like a window, your phone, or the color of the wall. Then you move to 4 things that you can feel, like your feet on the ground, your clothes on your skin, or the chair you're sitting on. After that, you name 3 things you can hear, whether it's music, voices, or background noise. Then you move on to 2 things you can smell or scent you like. And then finally, 1 thing you can taste or just something that you're grateful for in that moment. What I like about this method is that it just reminds you that you're safe right now. When words linger in your mind or emotions feel heavy, this just helps your body calm down and reminds you that the moment has passed. It doesn't erase what happened, but it gives you control when things feel overwhelming. And if I'm being honest, grounding techniques like this aren't about ignoring your feelings. They're just about giving yourself a pause so you can process them without spiraling. It's a small tool, but it can really make a big difference. And in this case, it really made a big difference for Dana.
No, thank you, Z, because it really truly did. Because anxiety is not nervousness. You know what I'm saying? What people think it is. Anxiety is your body thinking it's in danger, and your heart starts racing because your body is going into fight or flight. Well, your body thinks it's in danger, even if it's not. You know what I'm saying? Things may feel scary, and that's why you may feel triggered. You know what I'm saying? Or a memory may be triggered, or a similar feeling, whether it's a similar color, whether it's a phrase that you may have heard all the time. If every time you heard blueberry, somebody punched you, the next time you hear blueberry, your body's gonna be alarmed. It's a physical reaction, which is why it manifests in those type of ways. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like when you pull yourself out of that and you remind your body that you are safe, you are present, everything is okay, and that it doesn't need to be triggered, the alarms will eventually settle down, but it takes a minute. And that's why taking a second to think, you know what I'm saying? The body can't. That's why I remember I was watching Bull. It's a good show, chap. Y'all should go watch it. I was watching Bull, and it's about a lawyer. He's really a psychologist. He's a psychologist that helps lawyers and works in like the law scene with jury selection in order to get clients to go free, right? And he does it by like using psychology to analyze people and get the best jury for the best result for his clients, right? And this one girl, she was having a panic attack. She's a pilot and she was having a panic attack. Then she was in a crash and everything like that. Now panic attacks, anxiety attacks, a little bit different, but the technique still stands. He basically was like, okay, what's the color of grapes? And then like count to 5. Okay, now count from 8 down to 3. And now repeat after me. 1, 8, 9, 5, 6, or something like that, whatever, right? Everybody was like, what are you doing, bro? Like, whatever, right? He was so calm. He was just like, the brain cannot focus and count out of order without, reverting its attention. So while your body is like everywhere and your mind is like, not grounded, counting out of order, or like thinking of like a color that doesn't match or something like that, or whatever, right? Doing something like that to where your brain is like pulling focus, you know what I'm saying? It's not subconscious like a song that you have memorized. No, you're actively trying to think of something in order to distract your attention, and the brain will calm down because it's diverting this attention. And I thought it was a really interesting technique. So those are things that work for people. Other things, I remember Z, she had me hold an ice cube or something cold, right? Or rub it on your wrist or something like that. Something to bring out your senses and stuff like that, your sensory actions that can like tap your mind back into focus. Basically anything that can pull you out of the space of anxiety. I don't know if y'all ever like watch one of those shows where they had like a teenager having an anxiety attack and it's like the world is spinning and everything is blurry and everything like that. I don't know how accurate that is, but that's a depiction of like what you're stopping your mind from. You're pulling your mind out of that, box, right, that you kind of create, and then you're grounding yourself back into the present moment, right? But we got off track. Yes, anxiety, depression, as a person who struggles with depression, it's a real thing, chat. It is a real thing. It's very dangerous. And depression looks different for different people. It's not one size fits all. It's not what you see in the movies and, they eat ice cream and sleep all day and like whatever. Like depression looks very different for different people, depending on what causes it, whether it's seasonal depression, whether it's depression from trauma, whether it's induced, like whatever it is. Depression is so many different sizes, shapes, or forms. I actually want to do an episode on depression and functioning depression because that's also very common that we do not tend to recognize. So let me know if y'all want that, because functioning depressions are actually a really thing that was me for a good minute. But and a lot of y'all probably out there are like that. But I know some people like that. But I say like effects of verbal abuse. I mean, it makes you question yourself so much. You question your values. Am I worth XYZ? You know what I mean? Because it's like, why are they talking to me like this? You know what I mean? And when it's repeated, that's why I wanted to stress in the definition, it says pattern. You know what I'm saying? We'll touch on that later on in the episode. But when it's repeated, your brain starts to kind of internalize that, and your feelings starts to kind of confuse itself with reality. You know what I mean? So sometimes you may change yourself for a person, to adjust in order to make them happy, because they keep talking and you're doing this verbal abuse. So in order to make them stop, you might kind of adjust yourself, compromise your morals. You know what I mean? Stop things that you do, or, not do things that you actually do believe in, right? Not act on those things. You may struggle because you're trying so hard to please this person. All of that comes from seeking validation. You know what I'm saying? The excess validation that you want from the abuser who is saying these words to you, making you feel this way. So those are things that it may induce. Even just like your whole sense of happiness kind of gets surrounded by this one person. I mean, you're not happy unless they're happy, unless you make them happy. I'm gonna do this so they're happy. And a lot of times we see this with parents, children in toxic households. You see that a lot. Oh, she's never happy. She tells me I'm not good enough. She tells me it's not good enough. I'm gonna work harder and get better grades. I'm gonna do this that's extra. I'm gonna clean my room extra. I'm gonna do dishes without, her asking me to. I'm gonna mop the floor. I'm gonna do this. Hopefully she sees me and tells me that, like, she's proud of me or whatever. And then, then I'll be happy because she's happy and she's proud of me. That whole exchange, right? Or whether it's chasing love from a father that wasn't there. Or, okay, maybe if I do this and I do this and, maybe he'll want to be back in my life and, he'll be proud of me, he'll be happy for me, then I'll be happy once I have his love. Or whether it's a partner, whether it's anybody, right? You cannot equate your happiness to pleasing said person, right? Because that creates a cycle. It's never gonna be good enough, right? Because you have to have your happiness and your validation within yourself. So anything else, Z, that you want to add for effects?
No, not from me, thank you. But we are gonna get into how to recognize and respond. And one of the biggest signs is patterns, not just one-off comments. Everyone says something hurtful sometimes, but verbal abuse shows up when the same behavior keeps repeating, belittling, dismissing, or making you feel small over time. And this is where that quote comes in. Because there's this phrase that I honestly hate, and it's, "You're making a mountain out of a molehill."
Girl, you say that all the time.
I will repeat it again. You're making a mountain out of a molehill. That phrase is just often used to minimize what's actually a pattern. It makes it seem like you're overreacting to something small when in reality it's not about one comment, it's about how those words pile up. What looks like a molehill to someone else can feel like a mountain when you're constantly being talked down to or invalidated. If someone's words constantly leave you feeling worse about yourself, that matters. And here are some things that you can use to respond. You can use I feel statements. Like, for example, I feel hurt when you speak to me like that. This centers your feelings without escalating the situation or placing blame. Set clear boundaries. Please don't speak to me like that. You don't need to over explain or justify your boundary. Clear is enough. And last but not least, step back when necessary. I feel like this is hard for most people because, this person might have been in your life for like, what, 7 years? Maybe shorter, but sometimes when you feel that connection with someone, it makes you feel like you've known them longer. And honestly, if someone just repeatedly ignores your boundaries or just continues the behavior, it's okay to create distance because protecting your peace is not selfish, it's necessary. And recognizing verbal abuse and responding to it doesn't make you dramatic, it just makes you self-aware because you deserve relationships where your voice isn't something you have to defend.
No, for real. I want to touch on the fact where you was like, it might be hard. And yeah, definitely, because I feel like we'll touch on this later, but like we said, it's so normalized or it's so minimized. We tend to minimize that because it's just words. You know what I mean? It's not a physical manifestation of something, So we're gonna talk about that later. But it can be hard to leave. And a lot of times, like verbal abuse, we see like, yes, it happens with like bullying and things like that. A lot of times we see it in kids in school, whatever. For some reason people just pick on you, whatever. But and that stuff is real too, but a lot of times it's interrelational. You know the person, you have a relationship with the person, and it's a lot harder to make those boundaries or step back from somebody or speak up when you have that relationship with the person and you do love them, you do care about them. And obviously toxic people are not gonna come out from the jump and it's like, yo, I'm toxic, I'm abusive, I'm this. Nobody's gonna do that. You know what I'm saying? They're gonna present themselves with their representative, the best version of themselves. It's not even of themselves, it's a representative of the fake person that they've created in order to pull you in. So they're gonna approach you with that, obviously, which is why we have to use discernment. We can do another episode on that, but we have to use discernment and taking time to prove their character. Do they do what they say when they say it? Are they a hypocrite? Do they follow through? Do they treat other people the way that they treat you? You know what I'm saying? What do they family say? What do they friends say? What type of name, what type of report do they have? You know what I'm saying? What's their reputation? Certain things we have to break those down and analyze those, to be honest, because man, it's how you get in situations with people and then you're so shocked. Like, it's like, I didn't know he could speak to me like that, or I didn't know that she felt that way. Well, you're not gonna know that in the first week, in the first month, maybe not the first 6 months. It depends on how well they know how to play their character, And so once you see that behavior, stop excusing the behavior, please. Okay, they were just angry, or they didn't mean it like that, or they said it was sorry and it wouldn't happen again. Duh, they're gonna say that. Like, come on. Duh, they're gonna say that, and I say this out of love. You know what I mean? If you use those statements, that doesn't make you dumb or naive or anything like that. But it's the blindness, because you're confusing the character that you've gotten to know, that they showed you, versus the person that they actually are, that's revealing. You know what I mean? And that's why they're revealing it now, because they feel like, oh, they've done such a great job painting this picture that you're so obsessed with the person and you're connected to the person that you thought that they were, that when you actually see the person that they are, you're not gonna care, or you're not gonna believe it, right? So don't allow that to be the case. Once you see the behavior, as we said, patterns, not just isolated incidents. If you see the behavior and the patterns, do not ignore that, okay? Have enough self-respect to walk away, especially if they don't take accountability. And don't let accountability manipulate you. You know what I'm saying? The whole, they said they were sorry and it wouldn't happen again. Don't let that manipulate you, okay? They took accountability because they know what they did, and they did it on purpose. And the sorry is to keep the cycle, to reel you back in. You know what I'm saying? We see that a lot of times in like abusive relationships. If you don't know what the abuse cycle is in the chart, go look that up. The chart about how there's the season of calm, then there's the season of attack, and there's the season of re-pouring it back in, right? The season of compensation, I believe it's called. And then it goes right right back over again. The season of compensation is what so many people get wrapped up in. You know what I'm saying? The showers of gifts, the showers of I'm sorry, the moments of change behavior. I remember I was in a situation like that. They would act a fool, show me they behind, and then I would leave, right? But then the season of compensation came. Oh, now you want to get some act right. Now you want to be on your P's and Q's, and then I would fall for it and I take them back. Don't do that. Don't do that, Chad. Don't let fake accountability manipulate you and keep you in a cycle of the abuse, because that's literally all that they want. It's literally the purpose. Is there anything you want to say, Z?
I just wanted to say just really quickly, it's not dramatic to call out verbal abuse. It's necessary for your well-being. If you don't start now, if you wait longer, it's just gonna get worse. I've seen and I've heard stories, so many stories, talking where people are just talking about their experiences, and they tell me that they wish that they spoke up sooner, because it became this ongoing pattern where the longer you stayed in that relationship, you became more attached, and it just got harder and harder to leave. But once you do it, there's this weight that just comes off of you, and it makes you wish that you would have done it sooner. It makes you think like, oh my god, I'm free. Because let me just say, getting out of a verbal abusive relationship, or just like maybe even cutting off family members, you open the doors to so much. You open the doors to freedom. People see freedom as like maybe getting a car, learning how to drive, moving into your own apartment, but getting out of a verbal abusive relationship counts as one, and you don't believe it until you witness that.
That is so facts. I feel like once you let that go, and like I said, you stop chasing that validation, you stop chasing, because this is the thing, your world becomes isolated around them, and it's like, I just want them to be proud of me. I just want them to be happy. I just want them to finally say that they love me. I just want them to, you know what I'm saying? It becomes revolved around them. You know what I mean? And when you finally release that power that they have over you, and you no longer care their opinion, you no longer care for their validation, and you stop chasing that, like you said, the relief is a lot, you know. Let's take a brief intermission, guys, because we're gonna switch gears. We'll take a brief intermission and we'll be right back. Okay, we are back from the intermission. Part 2 of the podcast today. We're gonna get into forms that aren't as common, as well as forms that are common but don't have as much awareness to it. So I guess I'll kick it off. A form that's very common that doesn't have enough awareness, I feel like. I wanted to come in and talk for my men. Yes, okay. I'm not a man hit over here. I know there's some people that are like misogynists out there, but I'm not. I feel like men need representation too, and they need a space for vulnerability and all of that as well, you know. So I see it a lot in relationships. I want us to touch on this. I had seen this episode of Temptation Island, guys. I watched the last season. If y'all watch Temptation Island, let me know. If you watch reality TV at all, let me know, and we can do an episode on that. But Temptation Island, right? So I'll give you some context, right? So Temptation Island, there's 4 couples, right? And they come on the island in order to technically test their relationship, right? Usually couples that have some like reservations, been together for some years, and just want to prove to each other that they can be loyal, right? In Temptation Island, there's going to be tempters and temptresses that are there to physically and emotionally test y'all relationship, right? So you sign up for it and you come on and y'all go to different houses in different villages, men in one, women in the other. And so the woman in the village with the 4 women in the relationship will live with the like 10 or 15 guys that are the tempters, and then the 4 men in the relationship will live with 10-15 women who are the temptresses, right? And so the whole point of it is to work on the issues of y'all relationship, right? Now some people go in there, they just looking for friendship. Some people just go in there, they're looking for a hold of the relationship. Some people just supposed to be going in order to keep their eyes focused and say that, hey, I'm not gonna look at no other woman, I'm not gonna go look with no other men, to kind of heal infidelity or like any doubts that they have on their partner, right? And so one of the couples from the last season, right, the most recent season, Taylor and Tyler, right? I'm an avid Taylor hater and Tyler lover, but it was a scene, right? And Tyler had been, you know, saying how he wants to be seen for himself, all this type of stuff like that. This is what he's saying in the villa on, like, in their house, in behind closed doors, right? And he's saying how he wants somebody to see and recognize him, right? In the meanwhile, right, over in their house or whatever, right, Taylor is out here talking to some other man, right, talking about Tyler. Mind you, this is her partner, right? So you don't break up before the experience. This is not the ultimatum. There's no breaking up. Like, y'all are still by technicality together. So whatever boundaries you set, if you cross the boundaries, it's technically cheating, right? So she literally is hugged up and cuddled up with this other guy, talking about, oh yeah, Tyler, I just feel like I need a real man. Like Tyler, he has bitch tendencies, da 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 da. And you know, of course the guy takes that as an opening and it's like, oh yeah, you know, I would never do that to you. You know, you need a real man, da 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 da. And they're just sitting here talking stuff, like really talking bad on Tyler. Right now, Tyler, we find out literally says like, oh, he's been super vulnerable. He literally came out of like a 5-year marriage, all that stuff like that, in order to get with Taylor, whatever. He was young, all that type of things, made mistakes, things like that. And Tyler is just like, he's trying to find himself now. You know, he doesn't have a 9-to-5 job. Stability is what Taylor was looking for. But Tyler is trying to get into modeling, his newfound confidence, you know, get into that area of his life. And he's just figuring himself out. He's living day to day. He doesn't have a 5-year plan. He doesn't have a 1-year plan. He's living day to day. He's living day to day, right? And he's being super vulnerable. He's open with Taylor and everything like that. You know, he cries with her and talks about his struggles and insecurities. The whole time behind his back, she calling him a bitch. Like, that's crazy, right? That's crazy. And so I wanted to talk about that because that's an example which happens way too much. Maybe not those exact words, but we see it too much where men, especially in the Black community, right? We, as women, we gotta do better. We gotta do better, women. I'm sorry, we gotta do better. Because a lot of us think that we are good with communication or we're good with support or all those things like that just because you can express your feelings. No. Communication is 2 ways. Actually, I'll say about 75% if to 80% of communication is listening and not talking, because both of y'all can be talking over each other and yapping and nobody understands is communicating nothing. So if you cannot listen, if you cannot make them feel safe, give them a place to open up. I hate the phrase, this is a safe space. If it was a safe space, you wouldn't have tell me that. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like if you did your job right, and like I said, obviously men have to do the same thing, but right now we talking about women. If you did your job right, he shouldn't feel like, dang, I can't come talk to her. Now there's a difference between, okay, he's still going off of his past, he has trust issues, and it's not you, it's him and his issues that he hasn't gotten over, right? And that's a whole different episode about people who need to heal before they get into their next relationship. Off topic, right? That's a whole different thing. We talking about if he feel like I cannot come to you specifically, your partner, your girlfriend, your wife, whatever. If he feel like he cannot come to you and talk to you, he doesn't have that space. He doesn't feel like you'll listen. He doesn't feel like you'll understand. He doesn't feel as though his opinions will be valued, right? If you do something that bothers him, something wrong, he doesn't feel as though he can come to you and talk to you about it. He feel like he might be judged or whatever. Or even if you're going through a hard time, he doesn't feel like he can express sadness. He doesn't feel like he can express struggle. Doesn't feel like he could cry. Those things like that, because he's worried about coming off a certain way. Those are the things that a lot of men fear. You know, it's a reason why men don't open up and don't, you know, do those things. And then we have the toxic masculinity that everybody hates and all those type of stuff like that. But as women, if we don't work against that and do our job and our part of the relationship, you know what I'm saying? I feel like men just don't get enough representation on that. You know what I'm saying? Like getting disrespected or emasculated or belittled. We see that a lot. You know, Taylor, she was literally like saying, oh, because you don't have a stable job and you're not providing and da da da. You know what I'm saying? Mind you, this is just one season of his life. You know what I'm saying? So because he's going through changes, now all of a sudden he's less of a man. She doesn't support him. She doesn't, you know, give him those words of affirmation. Men, whether they want to admit it or not, a lot of times they be needing words of affirmation. Okay, just as much, if not more, than women do. So I just feel like I wanted to create awareness for that, creating a safe space and not having to tell them that this is a safe space. You shouldn't have to pry information out of your partner both ways. You know what I'm saying? You shouldn't have to, you know, tell them and force them and make them and try to, you know, massage it in there, you know, to make them feel comfortable with you. You know what I'm saying? If that's not there, and it has to be built over time, trust. But if that's not there, something's wrong, right? And there's gonna be that disconnect. And obviously Taylor and Tyler walked away from each other at the end because he found that connection with somebody who did make him feel seen. You know what I'm saying? Who did respect him, right? And as a man or whatever. In the same way that she wanted to find somebody who she felt could support her and respect her as a woman, right? But right now we just talking about men. And I think that it's something that a lot of women don't want to talk about, the shortcomings of women. You know, a lot of times we love to bash men because it's the easiest thing to do and it's in the forefront. But like a lot of times, like men will find what they're looking for elsewhere. And I'll never excuse no cheating or no diabolical behavior. Want to get that straight? I'll never excuse that. I hate when they be like, he cheated on me, and then somebody comes in and is like, but but what did you not do to make him feel? I hate that stuff, yo. I hate that. So that's not what I'm saying, because that's not true. There's nothing that you could have do differently to make them not do their decision, right? But in case scenarios to where men feel like they're lacking something, you know, because you didn't provide that, you know what I mean? Like we always say as women, well, one man won't, another one will. And a lot of us don't cheat. We'll just go find somebody who will. Men will do that. You know what I'm saying? It just looks different. So I don't know. Like I said, it's a different episode to talk about men and their behavior, but right now I want to talk about what fosters that. I feel like as women, and this whole like soft girl era thing that people talk about, the whole, you know, all that stuff, nobody really talks about that. The divine femininity, nobody actually really tries to walk in that. I feel like it's a social media thing, and I feel like we don't see it enough in the day-to-day of women practicing that, you know what I'm saying? And like, I don't know if y'all ever seen y'all grandparents, that old school love, that I support you when you down, not struggle love, not that's different. But when your man goes through seasons and ups and downs and changes, right, the same way that we do, you know what I mean? And we want that support, we want that consistency, we want that rock. They want the same thing, and a lot of us don't create that, you know what I'm saying? And I do my best to be able to heal myself in order to be able to create that for somebody, you know what I mean? And like I said, we just see it's common everywhere, you know, men have that. It's just common everywhere across the board. But in the Black community, as a Black woman, and as I love my Black men and I support them, I really want to see us do better. But it's really in so many different cultures. I've seen it in Christian households, I've seen it in Muslim households, I've seen it in Black, I've seen it in white, I've seen it in, you know, so many different things, you know what I mean? And you see it in the movies, you see it in teenagers, it's everywhere. And I just feel like I wanted to spread some awareness on that, just playing our role and just doing better as women, you know what I mean? Because we can't expect what we don't give. And so yeah, like I said, a lot of women overestimate their ability to communicate simply because they can articulate themselves, when a lot of us don't know how to listen. A lot of us don't know how to talk softly or kindly or use different softer graceful words, right? A lot of us don't know how to, you know, receive criticism. A lot of us don't know how to listen to somebody without interrupting, you know what I'm saying? A lot of us don't know how to not be dismissive, how to, you know, have empathy, right? I feel like these are things that we just got to work on, and I for myself will say it too, but it's things that we all got to work on and press towards the mark, chat. So press towards the mark of perfection. That's in the scripture somewhere, but I think it's in Philippians 3. But press towards the mark, y'all. Whatever your mark is, press towards it. Whatever pinnacle of femininity you want to be, if you're a woman, and masculinity if you're a man, whatever you want to be, the person that you want to be, the morals that you want to follow, the code that you want to walk by, whoever you want to be, do it. And press towards the mark. Take the steps. You know what I'm saying? So I just feel like we got to create better, healthier relationships, because I feel like it affects the next generation. How many of y'all really have not seen a healthy marriage / relationship? You know what I'm saying? How many of y'all grew up with y'all parents in separate houses? How many of y'all grandparents are together? How many of y'all grandparents actually sat down and talked to you, and or said your mother said that she talked to them? Like, how many conversations do we have throughout the generations on actually how to perpetuate healthy cycles instead of abusive or toxic ones? So I don't know. Be the change you want to see in the world. That's just what I want to say. So before we switch gears again, I'll give Z a moment to hop in. I know I was kind of yapping, but this is the purpose of the podcast. Okay. Anything you want to chime in on?
Oh my god, this is gonna be so off topic, but I don't know how many of you have like watched Love Island. I personally only seen I've only seen clips here and there, but there is this one couple that like takes the cake, that like stands out and like correlates with what Dana was talking about, you know, divorce, and just like how many of y'all grandparents have sat down and like spoken. And that couple is Leah and Miguel. I don't know what season they were in, but they are so couple gold. Like the way Miguel hypes up Leah, because Leah actually owns a beauty brand now, not like her brand that she created, but there's this brand called Skylar Beauty, I believe it's called. It's a perfume brand, and she took over, and Miguel has been hyping her up since, you know, like he never fails to tell her like she's amazing, you know, like you're doing so good, I'm here for you, and so on and so and so. And I feel like a lot of the time we don't see that anymore. So just to like see, like, I know it's controversial, like what you see online might not always be like real, people can fake stuff, but like with them, you can tell it's real. You can say like, oh my god, I aspire to have a relationship like them, because it's true, many of us do. And I wish many men out there were like Miguel, because Miguel is like such an amazing person, and Leah too. Like Leah be hyping him up, Leah's always there for him, like she's such a soft-spoken soul, and I just really feel like we should aspire to learn from them.
Girl, speaking of Love Island, we probably need to do an episode on that. Me and Angie talk about that all the time. That's another panel member, but I haven't done an in-depth episode. If we I actually do want to do an in-depth episode on some reality show or even like some reviews. I want to do a Stranger Things episode, guys. I haven't even watched it yet. I'm gonna get to it, I promise. Okay, but I want to do some episodes on shows and the themes and our opinions on that. As we wrap it up, as we bring it to a close, the main thing, chat, I want to stress, chat, abuse is abuse. Okay, we cannot continue to dismiss the realness of verbal abuse. You know, you don't have to feel like it could be worse, you know, right? Or, oh, it's not that bad, or people go through worse. Because I remember I used to do that. I used to invalidate my own feelings real bad. You know what I'm saying? As a person who been through a situation of all the different abuses, I used to say people have it worse. It's not that bad, right? But just because you don't have a black eye doesn't mean it's okay to suffer through disrespect, you know what I mean? Or disregard for you as a person, you know what I mean? You can't continue to perpetuate that the abuser does even when they're not around, you know what I mean? Because that's what they do. You know, when they're there, they talk down on you, they belittle you, they tell you that you're not good enough. Don't internalize that. Don't do that to yourself, you know what I mean? Don't take that level of disrespect and disregard. Don't minimize your feelings. Speak up for yourself, stand up, know your worth and know your value, chat. And remember, always remember, words have power, but so do you. So I'll let you jump in if there's anything else. If not, we'll close it up, Z.
To build off of that, I just want to remind everyone that words matter more than people like to admit. If something someone says keeps hurting you, you're not being dramatic or sensitive. You're being aware. You deserve so much respect. And I mean it. Like, as someone who craves respect, you deserve all of it. You deserve to feel safe speaking, and you never have to minimize your pain just to make someone else comfortable. Choosing yourself is not selfish, it's necessary. And I hope that you guys can take this lesson from today's podcast.
No, really. Like, Z's on the panel, chat, and the panel are different than interviews. Interviews are mainly for the interviewee to get to know them, but panels are more to discuss round topics and give our opinions. But Z, let me know if you ever want to do an interview. If you guys don't know Zahara from other episodes, or you don't know her personally, she's such a kind soul. She works so hard, and she definitely had a lot of growth. I've seen it, even just being in her life for maybe I've known her maybe 4 years, but we haven't really gotten close for real. Maybe in the last year and a half. So the love is definitely there. I'm so proud of her. I've seen her grow, I've seen her change, and she keep me in the loop, thankfully, and I do the same for her. Has my back all the time. That's always my caretaker. But if you want to do an interview, Z, to speak on your personal experience and your personal message on what you want to give to other people, we definitely can schedule that. Just let me know.
Oh, bet definitely. I would love to do that. And I actually have some people in mind who would also be willing to do an interview. But yeah, most definitely, I would love to schedule one with you guys. I really hope that when I do an interview, that you guys enjoy it and that someone can relate to it.
Definitely, because I think that's the whole point, is that when somebody is not on the panel but they have experience and things that I think the world needs to hear and that are valuable, we schedule them for an interview. So stay tuned, subscribe to the Spotify if you're listening on the Spotify. If you're watching the YouTube, stay tuned to put your notifications on for that. She is part of the consistent panel, so you're going to be hearing her name a lot. Faiza couldn't make it today, but today was a good episode anyways. So thank you so much for listening, guys. We'll keep everyone posted. I encourage everyone to do some reflection. This episode, we actually didn't have an activity for y'all. So if I was to make one up right now, analyze all your relationships and see what needs to be addressed with who and when. So I encourage you to do that. Speak up for yourself in a place that you haven't. Doesn't have to be, I'm being verbally abused. Nah. Even if it's something that you don't like I said, if it's a joke that one friend makes that you never like when they make that joke, speak up on it. So that's your activity for today, this week. Next episode will hopefully be out. This episode will probably be out for February 8th. I believe y'all will see this. So yeah, that's your thing for this week. Take care of yourself, everybody. So you can do it all with everything Christ that strengthens you. And remember that everything you need is in your DNA. Bye, y'all.